What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of NASCAR Round the Track with the Riders, featuring myself, SterlingRider, and Duke Rider.
Hey everybody, what's up?
Another lovely weekend for racing. We had some interesting things happen during the IndyCar race, and then we also had ARCA, Xfinity, and Cup Series racing at Dover. So, yeah.
Yeah, lots to talk about with some IndyCar stuff this week. First and foremost, we got some little IndyCar NASCAR crossover news. Kevin Harvick is going to be doing practice and qualifying for the number 5 car for Kyle Larson for the All-Star race, while Kyle is in Indianapolis doing practice and qualifying for the Indy 500. Kyle is supposed to get back before the heats run on Saturday. So if he doesn't, Kevin's going to fill in there too. But then Kyle will race in the All-Star race on Sunday. So pretty big news that Kevin's going to get back in a car. Also pretty big news that Kevin's going to be back in a Chevrolet and in a Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet. So that's some exciting news for us Kevin Harvick fans that we're going to get to see. I know it's just practice and qualifying, but we get to see Kevin on the track again. So and what better to have somebody on track on Friday and Saturday and then have them in the booth on Sunday, in the same in the same car that's going to be racing on track. North Wilkesboro has a new surface. They've got some new tire combinations that they're trying out. So this is the car that won the All-Star race there last year. So Kevin getting in that car and then being able to go and talk about his experience on the new asphalt, on the new tire combinations in the booth the next day is just going to add that much more to the information that they can give the fans in the booth.
Which will definitely help because, like you said, there's, a new surface layer. They're testing tires, it's going to be very, very informative, thanks to Harvick being able to practice and qualify, so that while he's in the booth with the others, we can get some insight on how it all is during the race. So I think it's pretty awesome. It's going to be cool to see Kevin back in a car. It's kind of funny how they were talking about it as Kyle Larson was saying Clint didn't make the list of drivers to be of availability. So,
well, come on. If you had a choice between Clint Boyer, who's never driven this car, and Kevin Harvick, who's got 3 years under this, or 2 years with this car, who are you going to put in the car?
Fair. I'd put Kevin in the car. But so.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, as a Harvick fan, part of me is hoping that Kyle gets stuck in Indianapolis and Kevin has to race the heat races and then has to race the All-Star race the following night. That he qualifies through the heat races and makes the All-Star race. But some big things would have to happen for that to happen. And when I say big things, like Kyle would have to make the Fast Six, which means he would have to qualify late Sunday afternoon when they do the pole qualifying. So, yeah. But yeah, that's something interesting. The other IndyCar news that came out was there was 2 teams, the team of Scott McLaughlin and Joseph Newgarden had their win at St. Petersburg, or Newgarden's win at St. Petersburg, and I think McLaughlin finished 3rd. They were both DQ'd for they had a push to pass debacle. For those of you that don't know, it's basically nitrous. It's an extra boost of horsepower the IndyCar drivers have on road courses to be able to overtake the person in front of them. There are times during the race that you cannot use that, and one of those times is on the start and the restarts of the race. Well, they had it programmed because they were able to do this at a test. They were able to do this at their all-star race, and I use that term loosely. They were able to do that, but some way, somehow, in this car, in these two, in this, oh well, it's basically all three cars because Will Power as well had some points taken away, but he didn't use it on the restarts. The other two did, and so obviously this was something that, of course, they claimed innocence. You know, the team claimed innocence. Well, everybody else in the garage was like, yeah, they did this on purpose. So, but that is something that we have seen disqualifications in NASCAR. It wasn't too long ago, I believe it was 2022, where Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch were both disqualified at Pocono. We've seen this happen in NASCAR, but it was that week or later that night. It wasn't 3 weeks later, almost a month later, that a disqualification happened. And again, this is some NASCAR IndyCar crossover because Team Penske also has teams in the Cup Series. But this is also a big deal with IndyCar because if you don't know it, Roger Penske owns the IndyCar Series. So he's cheating in his own series. I mean, you know, this just doesn't. It's not a good look for the sport of auto racing. It's really a black eye for IndyCar, but it's kind of a bruised eye for motorsports in general. You know, just because you never want to hear of blatant cheating, you want to hear of them pushing the limits of the rules. But I mean, you know, this is like a Cup car having nitrous in the engine, which is not legal. I mean, it's almost to that extreme. But yeah, that's the big IndyCar news for the week. We did have something happen in the race that we'll get to. That was another first, not just for IndyCar, but another first for my experience in motorsports, which I've been watching motorsports since like the early 1980s and have never seen anything like that before. But you want to talk about Eric Jones?
Yeah, I can. So, as we know, previously in Talladega, he had a pretty hard hit. Of course, we saw him standing up. You know, he gave an interview after the Care Center. This is also all on the end of the Talladega podcast episode. But found out later that day he went back to the Care Center and then went to the local hospital, correct?
Yeah.
And found out that he has a compression fracture in his spine, which is not good. For Dover, they had Corey Heim. Other drivers are to be announced. Corey Heim did a solid job, from what I saw. But Eric Jones is recovering. He's taking it week by week. Doesn't exactly know when he'll be back in the car. But he kept us updated. He was at the track. He was at Dover. Hating that he wasn't in the car, but he was happy to still participate and be at the track. So it's definitely got to be tough. Back injuries, we've seen it with other drivers. It's never fun. Not a fun recovery. It sucks getting back in the car and getting back to the use of the car. I wish him a healthy recovery and hope he can get back in the car sooner than later. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting things go on this weekend concerning that. Obviously, you mentioned that Eric was at the track. Jimmy Johnson was in the third car for Legacy Motor Club. They asked Jimmy if he was going to drive the car. I know that he said probably not, but there was always that chance that he could get in the 43 car. I mean, you'd have a 7-time champion driving a 7-time championship car number. That's not the 48 or the 3.
Yeah.
This is that would be akin to, a Richard Petty getting in the 3 car back in the day, or Dale Earnhardt getting in the 43 car back in the 90s or something like that, which they did. And the thing about racing in the past is drivers would get in each other's cars during practice. Maybe you had 6/10 on me on speed, so I wanted to get in your car and find out what it was like, and you'd let me, and then I'd let you get in my car and tell me what was wrong with it, what I needed to fix to get that 6/10 that you got. I mean, yes, they were competitors, but at the same time, they would help each other out. Now, that's not something you're going to see today, but what I thought was really cool, I don't know if you saw Matt Kenseth's interview. Did you see that?
I did not.
They interviewed Matt, and I think it was during practice, and he was like, "Well, I brought my gear. I thought they were going to let me be the driver, but I guess not." That Matt Kenseth's humor, but Matt is driver coach and helping that Legacy Motor Club out a lot. Anyway, on their competition side, but it was really cool to see Matt Kenseth back at the track too, and then with his humor. He's like, "Man, I brought all my stuff. I wanted to get in the car." But yeah, it was, and I agree with you. I think Corey did a respectable job with the limited laps that he has around Dover. Didn't work out for him so well in the Xfinity race Saturday. I mean, he had a blown engine, so didn't get a whole lot of laps in the Xfinity race, and this was his first start in the Cup Series, and Dover's one of those tracks that is just not everybody can get it. I mean, we've seen a lot of people drive that track for a long time, and like their best finish is like 15th, just because they can't. It doesn't sit. It's not their style of driving. It doesn't suit their abilities. They just never get that place figured out. So for this being his first start, for him being able to do what he did on Sunday was impressive.
No, I agree. Dover's tricky if you can't adapt to it. It's such a odd track. I know on the game I always it's very rare I come out of turn 2 and not hit the wall. Just because of...
See, mine's out of turn 4. I do fine coming out of turn 2, but out of turn 4, it's like I always slide up.
So it's
really high, but
it's definitely a tricky track. For being his first big Cup race, or his first Cup race period, I think he did a very respectable job with the experience he has and the equipment given to him. He did pretty well. So,
yep.
Anyways,
well, we had an Xfinity race. Well, we had an ARCA race. Not a whole lot to go from there. It was a typical ARCA race. There was quite a few single car incidents. There was a couple multiple car incidents. Connor Zilick, who impressed us. I remember we talked about him quite a bit with the COTA truck race.
Mm-hmm.
Very impressive at COTA. He's going to be running for Junior Motorsports some later this year in the Xfinity Series. He goes out and wins the ARCA race. Was not without controversy, though. He bumped, and I cannot say Williams' last name, Zawicki or Zawecki or something. I'm not even going to try. I don't want to butcher the poor guy's name. But he drives for Joe Gibbs in the ARCA Series. Kind of bumped him out of the way. to win the race. A little controversy there, but Rubin's racing.
A little bump and run.
He didn't
Never
wreck
hurt
him.
anybody. So
He didn't wreck him. William wrecked himself because he just got it. Connor bumped him, and William went up the hill and got up too far up the hill, and then kind of hit the wall. But it was ARCA race. It wasn't anything. I mean, it's worth mentioning, but other than it was a race at Dover.
Pretty much. Congrats to Connor, though. I mean, he continues. Of course, ARCA's, I feel like, not very tricky to understand those cars, but definitely impressive for Connor. Again, shows he's got the talent. I know Team Trackhouse is super happy to have him as part of the team, as he's pretty much on loan to every other team that's using him throughout this season as a driver. But I know Team Trackhouse was super happy and super proud of him for the ARCA win. So good to see the team support, even for a lower class race. So
he's 17 years old. He's won the Rolex 24 this year. He's now won an ARCA race. He's got a few more truck races to run, which, I mean, after seeing what he did at COTA, he could go out and win a truck race. He could win an Xfinity race. I mean, when we'll look here in a few more minutes about how that 88 car is running for Junior Motorsports this year, with all of this fresh talent. When Connor gets in that car, he could win. I mean, he could win in 4 major series this year. And if that doesn't get his name, if that doesn't get him a full-time truck or Xfinity ride next year, something is terribly, terribly wrong.
I would agree 100%. I mean, we've already seen him prove his talent with the few, he's done. So he'll probably just continue. I would say he'll continue to impress us with the rest of the season, and I could see him winning a truck race. Xfinity, I would say he'd be a good runner, maybe a runner-up. But the way the competition is Xfinity, I feel like it'd be a little tricky for him to win. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did win an Xfinity as well. So.
Because, I mean, he's going to be in some of the best Xfinity equipment out there.
Yeah,
so,
and that's the big thing. So,
yep. So, any shockers to you in Xfinity qualifying?
No, no, not at all.
Really?
Not really. I mean,
are you looking at the lineup? Are you looking at the right lineup?
I would say Kyle Weatherman is not usually that far up in the start.
No, he's usually back in the low 20s.
So he qualified 6th.
Yeah.
Other than him, there's nothing really shocking to me personally. Everyone else up front seems, is a normal, up front person. SVG kind of in the back though, qualified 31st. So we normally see him about mid-pack, but
but this is the first time he's ever seen Dover.
That is true. Josh Williams starting dead last.
Yeah, he had an incident in practice or it was practice or qualifying. He had an incident.
Yeah, which it happens. We've seen champions have problems with practice and qualifying. It happens.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
But yeah.
So, I mean, this was a pretty good race. But the big thing that I've got to talk about here, especially at the beginning of the Xfinity race, was we had Dawson Cram in the 4 car get into JJ Yaley in the 35 car and Haley Deegan in the 15 car. we would not know Dawson Cram exists had he not been in some of the most ridiculous incidences this year. He was in the bumper toss with Joey Gase.
Mm-hmm.
JJ Yaley in the 35 car. That's a Joey Gase car. So now Joey Gase has 2 wrecked race cars because of Dawson Cram. Haley Deegan has a wrecked race car because of Dawson Cram. And the really bad thing about this is they did not have an angle. One single angle of this wreck to show us on TV.
No, that's sad. No excuse.
I mean, and I think the angle that they did have, it was so far away you couldn't tell what car numbers were even involved. I mean, and we see this again in the Cup Series too with the big wreck that happens on the restart. It wasn't until later on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, that we got a good in-car camera shot that shows us what exactly happened with that wreck. So it seems like it's almost constant, not just on our show, but on every show that I listen to, they're talking about the production of Fox Sports. And they're talking, I don't hear anybody on any of these shows, any of the podcasts that I listen to that we promote at the end of our show, I do not hear any of them praising Fox for their excellent camera work and their excellent production. They are straight getting killed on these podcasts. I mean, they're getting ripped apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know.
And the thing about it is Fox used to be the standard. I mean, you go back to the early 2000s when they first took over the first half of the season in 2001, and you look at what they had to deal with that very first race. Dale Earnhardt gets killed. And they've got a lot of things going on emotionally through those first few races. I mean, the lap 1 of the following week at Rockingham, Dale Jr. gets wrecked. I mean, lap 1. Okay, then Steve Park goes on and the race is rain delayed, and Steve Park goes on and wins that race. And just all the different things that Fox had those first few years to deal with in terms of production. And man, they set the bar really, really high. Okay, but the Fox of today has basically taken the bar down and burned it compared to what they used to be. And we've got this for another 10 years.
Yeah, something like that.
So they really need to do something. I don't know if they need to hire a new producer that likes camera shots out a little bit. I mean, in Dover's a 1 mile track. They should have every inch. It's like Bristol. They should have every inch of that track covered at all times. No, you don't have to have, we don't have to have every camera on her screen at all times, but that track should be covered at all times with good shots of from every angle on that racetrack. And it wasn't. So we did miss out on that wreck, but that hurt Haley Deegan. It took out JJ Yaley. JJ Yaley was not very happy in his interview. Which I could understand. I mean, like I said, Joey Gase has lost 2 race cars to the same person.
Yep.
Dawson just needs to do better. But yeah, the rain delay. The other big Xfinity story. The rain delay. Of course, it's hard to tell when you're watching on TV what the rain is doing just because of the TV cameras and stuff like that. But from what everything everybody was posting on social media, it was not raining when they called for the red flag. They had not lost the track. Okay, then they threw the yellow and they put the cars back on track, and Justin Allgaier came out and said, it's raining harder now than it was when they stopped the race. And we're getting ready to go green.
You can't, of course, weather's not always predictable, but I think when it comes to weather, NASCAR is an oddball when it comes to it. I kind of course, I didn't watch the Xfinity race live, but I kind of like skimmed through the rain, and it was. I remember. I mean, yeah, Justin Allgaier came on and it was like, it's raining harder now than before, and that doesn't make sense. Like, you got the cars lined up ready to go again, and it's raining harder than before. So if we're just gonna keep racing now, why did we stop in the first place? So
yeah, and the really interesting part about that was they did the choose before they red flagged the race.
right.
Okay, so they do the choose, decides they're going to red flag, and then when they come back out, the leader pits, and then there's all kinds of chaos because nobody knows where to go. I mean, Justin Allgaier's trying to go high. He didn't have the right to. I mean, they weren't going to re-choose. I mean, basically, somebody in front of you pits, that line just moves up and fills that slot. So, but yeah, that was. I don't know what was going on there. If it's, and the thing about it is, if it's confusing to drivers, if it's confusing to the commentators on TV, I mean, let's see who was in the booth. It was Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney.
Yep.
Okay, if it's confusing to them, how do you think the fans sitting in the stands who probably are listening to a driver's radio or something, or listening to, maybe they're listening to the race on MRN or whatever, and the fans at home, if it's confusing to the people at the track who's driven these cars, it's going to really be confusing to the fans.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Logano and Blaney did a really good job kind of explaining to us what they thought was going on. Which, I'm not a Joey Logano fan. I like Ryan. I've never disliked Ryan. I mean, he's not one of my top favorite drivers, but they have really good chemistry in the booth. And they really help that Xfinity race. But then we had that three wide restart that was really kind of crazy, and you've got Carson Kvapil up there in the 88 car just diving underneath and taking the lead and led the race. I mean, was legitimately leading laps, and if it hadn't been for the craziness of those green, white, checkered, well, the first one, Austin Hill spun out. That was interesting, battling for the lead, and he spins out. The second one, Justin Allgaier spins out, causes a big wreck that ends the race. But Carson Kvapil had a legit opportunity to win the race.
Mm-hmm.
2 races, 2 top 5s. Kid's got some talent. He's going to be a winner.
Oh, I agree. Especially if he's picked up by a top team like Junior Motorsports, which I wouldn't see if Junior has a spot for him. I wouldn't see him saying no. But I mean, he continues to impress, in only 2 races. 2 Xfinity races. I mean, we've talked this before. Probably the most competitive of the 3 series, and a top 5. I mean, he was runner-up technically here at Dover. Led multiple laps, almost had the win. it speaks a lot. It speaks, it shows his talent, shows his skill set, and I would agree. I'm hoping he does get that first win. He is, I believe, he's running another. What is it? One more race, two more races this season.
I think he may have a few. I think he's got a few more.
I know he's got one, at least one more. I believe it's two or three, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to double check that. But I could see him winning in one of those next few races, and even if not, he's definitely. I would definitely say if he stays out of the wreckage, as we know, Xfinity can get some
Right?
some fender benders. He would continue. If he doesn't win, he could continue keeping this top 5 going, which, again, consistency. That, again, speaks volume on your talent and skill set. So he's definitely got it, and I look forward to seeing him continue to impress all of us, as I would say. So,
especially in this series where you're seeing championship caliber drivers like Austin Hill and Justin Allgaier just spin out.
right.
But Ryan Truex gets his second consecutive win at Dover. Also won at Dover last year. Man, I would love to see Ryan in top tier equipment full time. I wish Joe Gibbs could get him the sponsorship for a full time ride. He has proven that he can do it. Now, last year he just went out and dominated. Led a whole lot of laps at Dover last year. This year, did not have the best car, but was able to figure out how to put it where it needed to be when it counted. They even talked about it a little bit during the broadcast of he was running like 7th or 8th, and they're like, Ryan just doesn't seem to have the speed that he had last year. He didn't, but he was still able to get it out there and win the race. And I think if he had a full-time ride, that he would be a championship caliber driver. I mean, maybe even be able to win a championship. I mean, which would be impressive.
Definitely. I mean, it's sponsorships. I know can be a big deal. Getting sponsorships for particular drivers. But I mean, Ryan. We've seen Ryan. Of course, he won last year. Absolutely killed it last year at Dover. And yeah, like you said, didn't have what he had last year this year. But I mean, he was able to figure out the best path, the best lines for the car to get around people and be there when it mattered. And that comes into knowing your ride, knowing the car, knowing the equipment, and knowing the track. If you can put the car where it needs to go so you can get the best performance at certain tracks, it's going to change, and he knew that, and he was able to perform with that knowledge. And again, knowledge also helps when it comes to any series, really. But Xfinity being so competitive, that knowledge, because that tells you where to put the car, no matter what's going on. So definitely impressive for Ryan. And I agree. I wish he would get a full-time ride. I feel like he would be definitely a championship contender for sure. And it'd be awesome to see him win the championship. And I wouldn't be shocked if he had that chance. So it's just, the thing is I mean, like you said, sponsorships, that's hard to get, especially with a lot of sponsors already with particular teams and drivers. But if somebody could get a sponsorship and a full ride, I would absolutely say go for it. So.
All right, so our top 10, of course, we talked about Ryan Truex won the race. Carson Kvapil finished second. Very impressive. Sam Mayer Sheldon Creed, Cole Custer's top 5. AJ Allmendinger in 6th. Chandler Smith 7th. This is where it gets impressive. Kyle Weatherman finished 8th. Started 6th, finished 8th. Great run for that team and that driver. Anthony Alfredo finishes 9th. Really impressive. Anthony was able to win the Dash for Cash this week, beating out all the other teams. $100,000 to the R Motorsports team, which, like we talked about with Ryan Sieg last week, that's got to be huge for that team. The only downfall to this is we don't know how huge. And you know why we don't know how huge? Because Fox didn't put his interview on TV. They make a big deal out of Dash for Cash, and when AJ Allmendinger or Justin Allgaier or, top car in a top team wins it, they interview him. Now, they interviewed him, but they didn't put it on TV. We didn't get to see the interview. I saw it today on Twitter, was when I saw Anthony's interview that he did with Regan Smith. How can we promote the sport? How can we promote the Dash for Cash in the Xfinity Series? How can we promote these underdog drivers going out and having a top 10, winning the Dash for Cash? How can we promote that if we don't put them on TV?
That's an absolute good question, and I specified, especially because the NASCAR Fan Council questionnaire after every weekend of racing. This previous weekend, they were talking a lot about, asking a lot of questions on the Dash for Cash, and it's does it make it more exciting? Yes. Do you think, and then obviously it asks do you understand it? Do you know what it's for? And I'm yeah, I know all that. And it's asking, do you want to see it in other series, which I think would be great for Truck Series drivers.
Cup Series don't need it, but Truck, it would be great seeing Truck.
Truck would be a great series to have it in, and then it's asking it always asks at the end of these surveys that they give us, leave comments, and I put in there, I was most of the time I put in there more interviews after the race, make the broadcast longer. And this one specifically, I was Anthony Alfredo won the Dash for Cash. You asked me all these questions about the Dash for Cash, yet I did not see that interview during the broadcast. And that kind of upsets me because I want to see, how happy and excited he was to get that, that money. Because it's huge for a driver to be able to outperform 3 other drivers. Even, he finished 9th, and we've seen some drivers have just bad luck when it comes to Dash for Cash. They're in the running, and we saw it at Talladega. 2 of the drivers were out, and another driver was struggling due to equipment. So, technical difficulties. Are you there? Hold on, guys. Sorry. I don't know why. Oh, my Wi-Fi just completely cut. So I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay, sorry. Technical difficulties. My Wi-Fi crashed completely. The router completely reset. So sorry about that. Thankfully the recording's still good, so don't have to start all over. So anyways, yeah, basically we need those interviews at the end of the broadcast, quit cutting off so quickly. So
yeah, they went to bowling. Okay, do you get more sponsorship from bowling or NASCAR?
I would say NASCAR.
Right, because when they went to bowling, I turned it off.
I did too.
So, and then finish it out to top 10, we had Parker Ratzliff. So, pretty impressive. Again, as we've talked about, numerous times, best race of the weekend.
I would agree. I would agree. And
All
it's
right.
really no surprise because it normally is. Xfinity normally
I mean,
is.
yeah.
So,
I mean, it's usually Xfinity, then the truck race, then the Cup race.
yeah.
This week, I would say Xfinity, Cup, and ARCA in that order. ARCA's usually worse than the Cup race just because there's a lot of dumb stuff.
Uh-oh. I don't get it, guys. I do not get it. What happens when you're on an island and you have crappy Wi-Fi? But
Oh,
yeah,
man.
to be fair though, ARCA's a lot of like young high schoolers that don't have a clue what they're doing. So,
No, and that's what that series is for. So, I mean, I get it. Get it out of their system before they get into the upper echelon of NASCAR racing. But
right.
seems like some of them don't get out of their system.
Well,
They take it all the way up to the Cup Series.
Ricky. Oh, ooh, my bad. Uh-oh. So,
Yeah. All right. So run down our top 12 for points.
well, give me a sec. Let me get back to the points then. All right. So, Xfinity points. Chandler Smith still continued to hold number one spot. Excuse me. Got Cole Custer in second, Austin Hill third, Jesse Love, the rookie, in fourth, Justin Allgaier fifth, Riley Hertz sixth, AJ Allmendinger seventh, Sheldon Creed eighth, Parker Kligerman ninth. Sorry, Parker. Anthony Alfredo 10th, Sammy Smith 11th, and Brandon Jones 12th. Ryan Siege is 13th. Sam Mayer, who has won a race, he won Texas, so that technically knocks Brandon Jones out, putting him 13th, Ryan Siege 14th, and then SVG at 15th.
And they're all still, I mean, the bottom 11th through 15th. It's not separated by a whole lot of points. So, there's still a chance that SVG or even Ryan Sieg could work their way in. I see SVG winning a road course race, so I think he's gonna get his in there. So, but yeah,
Agree.
that's our points for Xfinity. We'll move on to Cup. Let's see, Cup qualifying. Yeah, the only surprise that got me at Cup qualify was Kyle Busch qualifying on the pole.
Pretty much not something you see at all. So that's two. Of course, Talladega, he's kind of more of an oddball, but that's two times Kyle Busch has qualified really, really well. I doubt it'll continue. Sorry, Kyle, just because of equipment-wise, but it's nice to see RCR kind of up there for a few moments.
And what else was impressive is we've talked about Ford, but in the top you had 7 Fords in the top 13. So that's pretty. They've figured qualifying out.
Yeah.
But we're going into the 11th race of the season. The big question going into Dover was still, can the Fords get it done?
And they didn't.
Nope. Which, can't really say we're surprised. I mean, but, and this was I want to say it was an interesting race, but it really wasn't an interesting race. I watched it. There was a few incidents that happened that caught my attention, but it wasn't anything that, as far as how the race went. I mean, um, the 19 car Martin Truex obviously was going to be fast. The 5 car, now that was really nice to see. Is that you can't say that you can't pass because um, Kyle Larson was able to work his way up to the front after starting way deep in the field. Um, you know, so but he was able to work his way up, win the second stage. Um, and there was, like I said, there was a few incidences, couple cars spinning out. Um, the big incident was on the backstretch on the restart. One of the restarts when, and I mentioned this earlier, we did not get a good camera angle of this. Shame on Fox. But we got to see a good in-car camera later on Twitter, and everybody was blaming Zane Smith. Zane Smith was definitely in the middle of it. Zane Smith is the one that had contact with Bubba Wallace, which sent Bubba down the track into right in front of Christopher Bell and William Byron, who had no place to go. There was no way they could avoid it, so they ended up getting knocked out of the race. But and again, all TV mentioned was Zane Smith got into Bubba Wallace. Well, then when you see that in-car camera of, I think it was Corey LaJoie, I could be mistaken, but you see an in-car camera view, and you see what they don't show on TV because they don't have an angle of it, is you see Tyler Reddick dive in 3 wide going in the corner. So he put himself and Zane Smith and Bubba Wallace 3 wide going in the corner. He lost it. He slid up the track a little bit, kind of made contact with Zane, which sent Zane up into Bubba. They saved it. They stayed 3 wide. They went down into this corner. Tyler got loose again, got up, made Zane get loose. I don't think there was contact. Made Zane get loose, and Zane got up into the 23, which spun the 23 out. So there was a lot of blame put on Zane Smith. I do, watching that replay, I do say Zane was driving a little bit over his head. Maybe he should have backed out a little bit, but I think the majority of the blame for this incident falls on the shoulders of Tyler Reddick because he's the one that put him 3 wide.
Which makes no sense because Dover isn't a 3 wide track. It is,
no,
but it's not going to stay. I mean, you're still going to wreck, especially with Cup cars. And what made me question it was, why would Tyler Reddick risk that when his own teammates on the other side of that, that line? Because if something were to happen, you're most likely are going to take yourself or your team out, if not both of you. And that's exactly what happened. He took out his own teammate because Zane Smith decided to keep racing, which I agree, he probably should have backed out due to the equipment he had. But Reddick also should have saw in that first corner after getting loose that he shouldn't have kept it 3 wide either. Most of this kind of is on, I would say, both of them. Reddick, putting it on mostly. I don't think it was a smart move. I understand, positioning, trying to make a pass, but Dover is not, for the Cup cars especially, it's not I would not make it 3 wide. In real life, I do it all the time in a video game, but that's a video game. In real life, it's a little more risky. I don't think it was a smart move for Reddick. I don't know if it was his idea or Spotter's idea, but it altogether, it was a bad idea, and we saw what happened because of that. It took out his own teammate.
Yeah, and then took out, William Byron that shouldn't have been running back there in the first place. Had a very bad pit stop. They dropped the jack too soon, had to pick up the car. It was like a 27-second pit stop or something like that. I mean, that's just, if you're going to be a championship team, and they have been absolutely phenomenal on pit road this year. The 24 team has. I mean, they've won 3 races. They've been up front in a whole lot of other races. All of his problems seem to be, all of the incidences that he's been involved in was not of his own making. I mean, when they got the trash bag on the grill and got the beer can stuck in the air filter, I mean, that was nothing William could do about that. I mean, but he was up front leading the race. I mean, you know, the incident at Atlanta where Michael McDowell spun him out. And then we had this incident here. But had he not been back there, had the pit crew not made that mistake, he wouldn't have been back there, wouldn't have been caught up in this particular incident. But, you know, still got 3 wins on the year. Denny Hamlin now has 3 wins on the year, winning at Dover. But the big story out of this weekend, Kyle Busch said Saturday that this car is a defensive car, not an offensive car.
Uh-oh. Hold on. Pause. Wi-Fi issues again. My Wi-Fi has crashed again. Good grief. Hey, on the road again is more technical difficulties, aka my router crashed again. You were saying?
I was talking about the aero blocking on this car, and we saw it with Kyle Larson back in the back, working his way to the front. Dirty air. He's in dirty air. All the cars that he's around is in dirty air. Once he gets to the front, we saw in that last stage, he was able to run down Denny, but he was not able to pass Denny. We saw how when the 24 car got stuck back in 18th, he just wasn't able to make progress. You know, now it had been at the beginning of the race, and he would have started back there with Larson. He probably would have drove right to the front. But by that point, all those cars had gotten everything figured out as to how their cars needed to run, and so that makes passing harder as you get later and later in the race. And this is the problem that we've seen with this car since the beginning. Now, this problem has been going on for a long time. This whole aero blocking thing, it was several years ago when Joey Logano was able to block at Kansas to keep Kevin Harvick back. We've seen it at other tracks, not just with this car, but with the previous generation of car as well. But in order to, you know, when you go back and you look at the cars of the 90s, now I know we're never going to go back to that, because those cars, you know, the cars on the track are supposed to represent the cars on the road at the dealerships. Of course, they don't completely, but they're you know, but you go back to those cars, and those cars were up off the ground. The nose was off the ground. The back was up, you know, down out of the air. You know, so you didn't have that drag and that downforce on the back of the car, and you had horsepower. Air could go under the car.
Hold on. Pause. You're frozen.
We've got to figure out how the car in second place can pass the car in first place. We got to figure out how the car in first place can pass the lapped cars. We saw Martin Truex get stuck behind. Was it Martin? It was either Martin or Kyle Larson coming to win the stage. Got stuck behind the 99 car. I mean, that's what's making racing with this car not that great. They can pass on the mile and a half, but on short tracks, on road courses, on a track like Dover, they just can't pass.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, we've sold it multiple times, more horsepower, and that, you know, and tire wear also. I mean, that would be two big factors. If they put back into the sport, we would see more passing, I believe, and we would see more strategizing along with it. And the same with the fuel efficiency. You know, when they're fuel saving, like get rid of that too. Nobody. That makes the race kind of boring, in my opinion. So when we have that horsepower and tire wear, and we're racing, we're seeing how tire wear is being different by each driver, because every driver is going to have different tire wear. It may be the same at the end, but throughout the race it's going to be different because everyone's running a different line or in different positions. You know, you got the clean air up front, the dirty air in the back. So we're going to see differences. And then someone like Kyle Larson, you know, weaving up through the field, we're going to see how his tire wears is different to somebody who just stayed pretty much where they were all race. So it's definitely something NASCAR really needs to put back into the sport. But I doubt they will at this point. It doesn't seem like they like to listen to us. But we'll see.
Well, it's not only us, it's the drivers. The drivers are saying it too, and they're just like, they're not listening for whatever reason. It's like they've got what they've got. They like what they've got, and I don't see how they can like what they got. But any which way, that's, I guess, you know, we'll see. So our top 10 was Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., no surprises there. Kyle Busch with a good run. He needed that. Chase Elliott with another top 5. Noah Gragson, impressive. In 6th. Ryan Blaney in 7th. Alex Bowman in 8th. Daniel Hemrick with some pit strategy. Got lucky with that caution there. With a caution. And then Ty Gibbs rounds out the top 10. So, again, and we talked about it at the beginning of the show, we're 11 weeks in. Ford, they had some in the top 10, but they still couldn't get the win. Didn't have a whole lot of luck up front leading laps either.
No, not at all. They are struggling bad, and they need to figure out what's going on and get a Ford in victory lane. Otherwise, the manufacturer just might come out and say we're done, and that's going to leave a lot of teams running around to figure out, who do we run now? Who's going to let us run? You know, what manufacturer will let us run their car?
I don't see that happening, but, you know, we already know that Stuart Haas is on the fence with Ford.
And that's probably one of the best Ford teams on the track overall.
Well, yeah, I mean
we're seeing some of
the
other Ford teams pick up, but, I mean, that's Stuart Haas is a multi-championship team. So,
well, right now you've got Ryan Blaney and Chase Briscoe carrying Ford. You've got Noah Gragson that's had good runs. You've got Brad Keselowski that's had good runs. Joey Logano that's had good runs. Chris Buescher that's had good runs, but consistently right now it's Chase Briscoe and Ryan Blaney more than anybody. And it's almost like Ryan's got the speed carryover from last year that he had towards the end of the season that helped him win Martinsville and helped him win the championship. But we can't go without mentioning that Ryan Blaney did not win at Phoenix last year. He just won the championship because he was the highest of the final 4 cars. So, but he still did not win the race. So it's Hendricks versus Gibbs right now. I mean, that's pretty much. You got Tyler Reddick in there hanging in, and Ryan Blaney hanging in, and Ross Chastain and Kyle Busch. But the top out of the top 8 in points that you're going to go over in just a second, Tyler Reddick, but he's a Toyota team, and Ryan Blaney are the only non-Hendrick
Or Joe Gibbs.
or Joe Gibbs in the top 9, and Ross Chastain runs out the top 10. So you've got all 4 of the Hendrick cars are in the top 10. And 3 of the Gibbs cars are in the top 10. Then you've got 2311 with the Toyota. And Ross Chastain is your top 10. I mean, you've got 1 Ford in the top 10.
Yeah, like I said, they really need to figure out what's going on. Because if they don't do it in the next race or two, I don't see them getting very far if they even make it to the playoffs. So,
yeah, because I mean, the next race is Kansas, and Toyotas for the past several years, particularly 2311, has dominated at Kansas.
right.
And then we've got Darlington, which, you know, the Toyotas, you know, Denny Hamlin and, you know, William Byron and Kyle Larson are, you know, and even Martin Truex runs up front at Darlington. So, and the thing is, the Fords have to beat these guys to win a race, and right now, it's hard to beat these JGR and Hendrick Motorsports drivers.
Yep. And honestly, I don't see them really being beaten unless it's at somewhere like Daytona or Talladega again. Because those type of tracks, of course, Atlanta, I mean, it's still a big drafting track where Suarez won, but it's drafting tracks where outside of Joe Gibbs and Hendrick, those are where the other 2 have won, is from drafting tracks. So if that's the only track we can get other people to win at, then it's going to come down to Joe Gibbs and Hendrick all the way down through the playoffs.
Yeah, and that kind of kills the whole parity that NASCAR wants this car to produce. I mean, when you've got, but again, and everybody said it back when this first came out, that the cream would always rise to the top. And this year, more than the previous 2 years with this car, we are absolutely seeing the 2 best teams. And I'm gonna go ahead and go on record and say 2 of the best teams in the history of NASCAR. I mean, I know there's been some other great teams in the past, you know, that may not be that competitive right now, but over the last 20, 30 years, it's been Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing.
Right. So,
I mean, Penske snuck in and won a few. Stuart Haas has snuck in and won a few, but you go back over the last 30 years, and it's been Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing.
and with the way this year is going, I don't see any change in that in the next few seasons, especially. I mean, they continue to prove they are some of the best teams. So, and with their current drivers, I don't see that changing.
So let me ask you this. Do you think Ford could go 2024 winless?
Ooh, that's a tough question because I feel like what I would say would somehow still be countered. Um, Depends. So Ford altogether, I would say they would at least get a win. However, it will be at a drafting track, like I was saying earlier. It's gonna be Daytona or Talladega. Um, but I feel like there's only 3 or 4 drivers I would choose to do so. Um, just because they've been running well so far. But we've got Brad Keselowski, who's had really good run at Talladega. Michael McDowell had a really good run at Talladega. Same with Noah Gragson, and then I would say Chase Briscoe as a third, just from consistency. Those are really the only 4 I would see winning, if we were to have a Ford in victory lane. So I can't really say yes or no, but I can kind of give you an idea of it's possible, but I don't know if it'll happen or not. So,
Okay, I could go with that. I would throw Blaney in there as a possible race winner.
Blaney as well. Former champion. That one makes sense, of course, and he's had some solid runs as well. It just seems to me like Penske altogether, though, has been struggling. We heard nothing of them last season, and they've been pretty quiet this season as well. Just the biggest thing was the championship that, when Blaney won Martinsville and then didn't win, like you said, didn't win Phoenix, but he was ahead of the other 3 drivers to win the championship at the end of the season. And that was pretty much all we heard of out of Penske at all last season. So,
well, really for the last 2 seasons, Joey won the championship in 22, but he, kind of snuck his way in there. Same thing with Ryan last year. Ryan won the Coke 600. Then you didn't hear from him again until late in the playoffs. So it's interesting to see how all this is playing out. This is a 12-race winless streak going back to Phoenix last year for Ford. So, I guess we'll just go through the next 12, 13 races to see what they're able to do. If they're able to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Because that's to me, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take somebody doing something that nobody would ever think about doing, whether it's in the pits, whether it's with the car, whether it's with the tire strategy or a fuel strategy or just something totally out of left field to get them into victory lane at this point.
And I feel like if we don't see them in victory lane by Daytona, which is the next to last race of the playoffs, I would 100% guarantee we would absolutely see something like that at Daytona with the Fords. Something out of the blue that is not normal, just because, at that point, Ford would have to be determined to get one of their cars, no matter who it is at that point, in victory lane, just to have that appearance in the playoffs. So I would say if we don't see someone win by Daytona, we'll most likely see something unusual then. So I don't know what to say, really. Ford, it's just struggles. I've never liked Ford personally, but I prefer them over Toyotas, and I don't know. I got a lot of backlash of that from work, but it's whatever. So
see, I used to be a Ford guy. My drivers back in the '90s mostly drove Fords. until Dodge came in, and then a lot of the teams that I was fans of switched to Dodge, or drivers that I was a fan of went and raced for Dodge. So became a big Dodge fan as well. I wish they'd come back, but it's hard to see a championship manufacturer struggle so mightily with this car. But you want to give us our top 16 in points?
Sure. Top 16. So, Kyle Larson, he has taken over the number 1 spot, but Martin Truex is still right behind him. There's actually a 15-point difference, so I don't think the behind changed. I think they just swapped positions, if I remember correctly. So Chase Elliott is 3rd, Denny Hamlin 4th, Tyler Reddick 5th, William Byron 6th, Ryan Blaney 7th, Ty Gibbs 8th, Alex Bowman 9th, Ross Chastain 10th, Kyle Busch 11th, Chase Briscoe 12th, Joey Logano 13th, Chris Buescher 14th, Bubba Wallace 15th, and Brad Keselowski 16th. Of course, we've got Daniel Suarez down at 18th, so that moves him up, kicking Brad Keselowski out to 17th, and Christopher Bell is 18th. So we have got, I wouldn't say any oddballs in or out, but yeah, I feel like I can't really say anything because they're Ford drivers, but Noah Gragson and Josh Berry. I mean, Gragson especially, I expected him not in 21st for being with a team like Stewart Haas, but as we've talked about, Ford struggling, so I don't know what's going on with them.
I know it's the big kicker right now.
I feel like I just created more questions about Ford than I did answer anything.
Right? Yeah. All right, fantasy.
Oh boy! All right. So I actually did really well this week. I did tremendously well. So
I would have if I had taken Denny out of my garage and put him in my lineup in place of William Byron.
I would have been smart. Hey, you were able to watch it live this time too.
Unfortunately, William didn't crash until the 3rd stage.
That is true. That's sometimes that lock in after stage 2 bites you in the butt. But for my lineup, kind of a strange one, as I had a couple drivers in here I normally wouldn't. I had Kyle Busch. Figured if he's on the pole, he's gonna run pretty well, I would say. Not usual.
Yeah, that was
not usual.
That's why I had him in my lineup.
Not usual for RCR, but I mean it's Kyle Busch, so I figured he'd do his best to stay up front. I mean he did almost the whole race. I had Noah Gragson, Alex Bowman, Martin Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney, and then I had Josh Berry in my garage. I originally had Blaney in my garage, but after near the end of stage 1, I switched him out. So
we had the exact same lineup with Busch, Truex, Bowman, and Gragson. The only difference was I had William Byron in my lineup and Denny Hamlin in my garage. And I still lost some major points to you.
I don't know what to tell you.
I don't get that, how we could have the same lineup almost, and I guess one driver makes that big of a difference.
I guess so. I'm not exactly sure how the points work with the fantasy, but it apparently makes a big difference. I know featured matchups, I mean, each one you get is 10 points, so that definitely helps. Of course, that's toward the end. That's after the race. But in feature matchups, I had Tyler Reddick over Kyle Busch. Got that one wrong. Alex Bowman over Ross Chastain, so I got that one. Kyle Larson over Chase Elliott, got that one.
No, didn't get that one.
You didn't get that one, man. I'm shocked.
Nope.
And then I had Denny Hamlin over Christopher Bell, which I mean,
I had that one too.
I knew that one pretty much at the beginning of the race, due to what happened. So.
Well, see, I did mine off of qualifying, and since Jayski qualified so much better than Kyle, I was expecting.
And normally, I mean, I'm normally the same way, but I've started to use my resources, and I scroll down at the bottom that tells me like who's to avoid, who's a good pick, and I realized, from last year's finishes, most of the people I had had a top 10 finish from last season. Of course, Josh Berry, the rookie, was kind of my oddball, I feel like, just from qualifying. But a lot of, Truex had won last year. If I remember correctly, that's what it told me.
Yep.
And then Blaney, former champion, I kind of just threw him in here. Alex Bowman had a pretty good season finish at Dover last year. And then Gregson, coming off of a couple of good finishes, I figured he'd keep that up, especially with a good qualifying start. And then Kyle Busch on the pole, I figured nothing could go wrong. So, yeah. But I mean, there's definitely some points difference. I mean, I came up on top 235. I think that's the most I've gotten any race. As I scroll through every single race here real quick. Yep, I think my closest is 217. So, yeah, I mean, that's the best I've done. You came in second with 198, and poor Trey. And I don't know if he did, because I forgot to text him earlier today.
And I reminded him last week when I saw him.
Busy schedule, but I was texting him. I was texting him Saturday while he was at the gym, and I literally said, "Change your fantasy lineup," and he said back, "Oh, right." And so I don't know if he actually did it or not, but
I told him Thursday night when I saw him.
Technical difficulties again. Except this time it just quit recording. I don't know. Don't help. If you can help me out here, please leave a comment. I'm trying my best. That's all I can say. So anyways, no, not overall standings with everyone. I want overall standings between us three. Trey in third. He finally broke 1,500 at 1,560 here. You in second at 1,948. And me in first, oh yeah, I broke 2,000. I'm at 2,050. I am 102 points above you in second. So
long season.
Still a lot to go. So if Trey quits forgetting, he could potentially just come back and whoop us. I mean, it's possible.
LeBron has a better chance at beating Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, well, he's about to be out in round one against the Nuggets anyway. So,
I ain't complaining.
I'm shocked. I'm very shocked they didn't get swept. I mean, they won Game 3, and their Game 4 is going right now, or they won Game 4, and Game 5 is going right now. NBA playoffs are weird, to be honest. But so yeah, that is fantasy.
Well, head to head, we doubled up again.
I'm not surprised.
You had Cole Custer in the Xfinity Series. He finished fifth. I had Justin Allgaier, who I thought was going to win the race, and ended up with that crazy crap on the last lap on that final overtime restart and finished 17th. Then in the Cup Series, you had Alex Bowman, who finished 8th, and I had Martin Truex Jr., who finished 3rd. So there was that. So you have 13, I have 12. We need to get back to the triple header weekend so we can
stop breaking even.
stop breaking even. So anyway, sent you the lineups for this week. Who is your let's see here. Brett Moffitt is in the 1. Good to see him back in the Truck Series. Connor Mosack is in the 7. He's not the Connor we've been talking about.
No.
Let's see. And I believe Zane Smith, is in the 91.
Yep. So, we also have Mason Maggio. He's not a full-time driver. He's running the 22. I actually saw the other day. I follow him on Instagram. He's a big super late model driver. I saw they just announced I think it was Saturday that he was going to be on for a couple races with that team. So good to see again. More smaller, short track drivers getting some more opportunities in the big leagues here. So Kansas Truck Series, my pick. I am going to go with Corey Heim.
Oh, you bum! That's who I was going to pick.
Darn, I took his pick away. Good. Maybe that means I'll win the trucks for once.
All right. Well, let's see. You're going to go Corey Heim. I know it, right? Man, you know what? I'm not going to pick Lane Riggs.
I don't believe
his luck isn't going to turn around. You know what I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick Raja.
Raja?
Yep.
You took my buddy. No, I think that's a good pick. I think they're both good picks. So I'm actually curious. I'm curious to see how this one plays out for us. So,
and it's going to be one of those that may come down to qualifying.
It might be.
Because we know with the trucks, if you get caught back, with the monkeys, you may end up a tree without a banana.
Well, that's one way to put it, I guess. So now for Cup, give me 2 seconds here. I'm gonna look something up. Hold on, not Kansas
come on
City
now, you're
Chiefs.
cheating.
I'm not cheating. I'm comparing things, okay?
He's cheating. He's looking up last year's winner, folks.
I am looking up last year's winner. I couldn't pick him anyway because he just won. Doggone it. Well, that's an interesting 1, 2, 3 from last year.
You talking about Denny? Well, who are they since you're looking it up?
Okay. So, Denny Hamlin. Last year, Denny Hamlin won. Kyle Larson 2nd. William Byron 3rd. Bubba Wallace 4th. Ross Chastain 5th. That's as far as I'm going to go. So, that's your top 5 from last year. Oh, boy. I got to see who all I've picked. I picked Hamlin. I haven't picked Byron? Really?
Nope, you have not.
That was probably loud because I'm right on the microphone. I'm sorry. Well, in that case, because I think I have picked Kyle Larson as well. So I'm gonna go with William Byron then.
All right,
that's who I'm gonna go with.
Good pick. I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. That 45 car has won more than one race there with more than one driver in it.
That is
They've
true.
won with Kyle.
Kurt.
They've won with Kurt Busch. They've won with Bubba Wallace. Tyler Reddick has run good there. Denny Hamlin's run good there. Toyotas have won good there. Toyotas have been unbeatable the past several years at Kansas. I don't know if it's his car or what, but they just have not been. It's been hard to beat them at Kansas.
No, that's.
So,
I mean, that's fair. I would say that's a good pick, considering that. So.
all right, so there's our fantasy picks for Kansas.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, we want to talk about the little incident with the IndyCar race.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about it. Okay, so they were at Bieber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama. I can talk. I know where this is at. I've been through Birmingham.
Sweet.
I know, right? Every time I hear Alabama, that's what I think of. I hear that little guitar riff. Anyway, they're having to race. The race is fairly uneventful. Scott McLaughlin led the majority of the race. Ended up winning the race. There was some pit strategy thrown in and stuff like that. They got some other leaders. But they have a bridge over the track, and much like the bridge at Dover, and the guy that owns Bieber Motorsports Park has these mannequins and different odd decorations around the entire racetrack. At one point during the race, one of the mannequins on this bridge falls down, and she has a name, Georgina. Don't ask me why. But she falls from the bridge onto the grass right next to the racetrack. And the way she lands with her hands out over the track. And a car comes by, and obviously, it cuts the mannequin's hands off. There were some drivers that were a little taken aback and wondering if it was a person that was out there that needed some help. They were wanting IndyCar to stop the race, to see what was going on. Well, the spotters let them know it was just a mannequin. And to be honest with you, they replayed it several times on TV and got a pretty good laugh out of it. Ben, like I said, I've been watching motorsports for years. I have seen a skydiver, heavy bag under the skydiver has hit Kevin Harvick's car at, I believe it was Las Vegas. It was in Las Vegas or Texas. I have seen a big Tropicana orange in Chicago being blown across the track in qualifying. I have seen cars hit birds. And you can see the bird explode on TV. I have seen cats run across a live racetrack. I have seen all kinds of. I even remember one time at Watkins Glen, they had red flagged the race, and a fan with no shirt on jumped the fence and ran up to Matt Kenseth's car to get an autograph. We've seen people climb the fence at Richmond. We have seen some crazy stuff. I've seen it. You've seen some crazy stuff in motorsports, but this has to be the most. I thought the Tropicana orange.
That's an
odd
qualifying
at Chicago was probably going to be the end-all be-all of things that ended up on a racetrack that didn't belong on a racetrack until we had a mannequin on the racetrack this weekend. I don't know which is stranger, a beer can in your air filter that came out of the trash bag, or the mannequin falling from the bridge, getting her hands cut off by an Indy car going over 100, almost 200 miles an hour.
I would definitely say the mannequin is more weirder, because a flying trash bag, especially when it's windy, of course it was in the dumpster like it's supposed to be, it'd been okay, but a trash bag with a beer can in it at a NASCAR race is a NASCAR.
A given.
It's just it's how it's the NASCAR. It's fans in the stands or even in the infield. It probably came from the infield, if my thinking. But that's expected. It's not expected to be on the front of a car and that beer can end up in your cooler in your filter. But it's expected to see something like that happen if it were to, which I mean it did. But the mannequin, that's just. You got to go through some weird process to just want a mannequin randomly. And I don't know if you're purposely dropping it or if you just. Why do you have a mannequin at the racetrack anyway? Like, how did you get that through like security or something?
No, it was the guy that owns the track has decorated the track with these weird mannequins and Halloween type decorations. He's done it for years, and for some rate, and this thing is tied on the outside of the fence for the bridge, and I don't know if the ties broke or if it got caught by a gust of wind or what, but either way, I'm kind of with you. It's kind of like, what was it? I get that the guy that owns the track is a little eccentric, but I mean, could you imagine if this would have landed on a race car and landed like on the cockpit of the race car? I mean, I don't know about you, but the driver could have had a heart attack. I mean,
probably
a person. Not realizing that it's a mannequin, just thinking a person has just fallen off the bridge onto my race car. I just killed somebody.
Yeah, I don't think that feeling would be fun. And I frankly don't want anybody to find out how that would feel. So I would
No, and think about how angry you would be if you found out later that it was a mannequin.
I'd be pretty pissed, to be honest.
Right? I mean, you would be wanting to choke somebody.
I would respectfully, with anger in my tone, tell the track owner to get rid of them altogether. It makes a little more sense that the track owner has them for decorations, but I would still take them down during the race. Just for safety, especially with what just happened. Definitely would reconsider leaving them up whenever he does. Like I said, I understand for the decoration. I still think it's weird using mannequins for decoration, but I understand it. So, again, I would just take them down for during the actual race and put them back up afterwards. So.
And now that this has happened, IndyCar may just request, hey, can you pull them down for our race?
Yeah. So another strange weekend for racing, I would say. But with all of that being said, I have nothing else to go over. How about you?
No, I think that's it. There's really not any news. I still literally have no news on the charters. We have no news on Ford and Stewart-Haas. We have no news on Stewart-Haas and their charters. So I guess right now, no news is what we got. I can't say this isn't one of those situations where no news is good news, because as we've documented a lot on this charter negotiation, we're 11 races into the season and they still don't have it done. So, I would like to see this done by the Coke 600. If not by the Coke 600, they've got to get it done before the playoffs.
I would agree. They really need to get on this for sure. I mean, it's a big part of the sport, and a lot of teams need to know. Not just a lot of teams. Every team needs to know about it. And so, I was gonna say
especially now that especially now that the teams are depending on having that charter to sell sponsorship. You know, they can go to a potential sponsor and say, or they're even their current sponsors and say, we're guaranteed in this. We're guaranteed in the show. We will be in every race weekend. Okay, so you put your name on our car, it will be seen. People will see it. It may not be shown on TV because, let's face it, Fox likes to zoom in on the leader. But it will be seen by people at the track. You'll have sponsorship opportunities at the track. You'll have, different activation opportunities around the track and commercials and stuff like that. Without it, and teams have already started putting those packages together for 2025. Now they're putting those packages together now. They're getting their drivers drivers that are in contract years. They're sitting down with their drivers and they're working out contracts. Teams cannot. It's going to be hard for teams to put a sponsorship package deal together. It's going to be hard for teams to even sign contracts right now because if I don't know how much money I'm bringing in, I can't guarantee you as my driver how much money I can pay you. Because until I have a charter, I can't get a sponsor. Until I have a sponsor, I can't sign a driver because I may have to sell what I do have because I can't have the money to pay for it. So this deal, it should have been done. I know what teams are asking for. I don't think that it's out of line what the teams are asking for. They're asking for more money. They're asking for a bigger cut of the TV contract. NASCAR is not bending. It's got to get done sooner than later, or we could see some teams closing. Now we're not going to see big teams closing. Hendrick Motorsports is not going to close. Joe Gibbs Racing is not going to close. 2311, Penske, Stuart Haas is not going to close, but Stuart Haas may close 2 teams. If I can't get charters, I can't run those teams. JTG. There's rumors that JTG's charter may be up for sale. Well, if they don't have a charter, they can't sell it. It's not going to do them. They have nothing to sell technically outside of equipment. So what does this do for Spire? What does this do for Trackhouse? Spire just paid $40 million for a charter last year that they bought from BJ McLeod. If the charters, if the agreement's not reached, Spire just basically gave BJ McLeod $40 million for his charter for 1 year. So it needs to be worked out. It should have already been done. And they just need to get to the table and get this done.
I agree. It's definitely something should have been done, needs to be done. Because as you said, a lot of teams need to know about it. So,
and this could cost us some drivers too. I mean, Joe Gibbs may have to go to Martin and say, "Okay, Martin, here's the deal. I don't have charter. Without charter, I can't get Bass Pro to come back. I can't re-sign you. You got to you either find another team or retire." Or Martin might just throw his hands up and say, "I don't want to deal with this mess. I want to have a contract signed. We can't sign a contract right now because you don't have a charter and you don't have a sponsor deal put together. So I'm just going to retire." I mean, it could cost us Martin, and I don't know if any other drivers are close to retirement, but who knows? Somebody might just throw their hands up like Carl Edwards did and say, "I'm not doing this no more."
It's definitely possible with what's going on. So we'll just continue to keep tabs on it and talk about it as
this is one of those situations. I know they got that saying, "No news is good news." This is one of those situations where no news is bad news.
Right. and that's not good for the sport. So, yeah. So of course we'll keep tabs on the charter. Also keep tabs on Eric Jones. Supposedly in the lineup, they still have him. Nobody has, not that I've seen, nobody has announced that he'll be back in the car for Kansas.
He's got a doctor's appointment either tomorrow or Wednesday for an evaluation. So we should know by Thursday.
Okay. So
Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, whether he's going to be in the car. If it's what Eric Hamarola had, if it's what Denny Hamlin had with their situations in the race car, I don't see him getting back in the race car for 6 to 8 weeks. But I hope it's not. I hope it's not that serious.
Me as well. So we'll also keep tabs on that with him. Again, wishing him a speedy, healthy recovery. Because you can tell he was antsy at Dover that he wasn't in the car. So,
Did you hear Brad's quote on that?
I did not.
They asked a lot of the drivers how it would feel, and Brad Keselowski, with Brad Keselowski's humor, probably got him in trouble at home. But his quote was, "Well, I've never caught anybody sleeping with my wife, but I could imagine it would be the same." That kind of tells you, though, how serious these guys take driving a race car.
Yeah.
I mean, he's comparing it to infidelity in his marriage.
I'm pretty sure it was just all humor, though, knowing Brad. So,
oh yeah. He said it with a smile on his face.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
That doesn't mean his wife appreciated it very much, though.
Well, if he shows up at the track this week, we'll know he's okay. If not, I would say send a search party for his body. So, with all that being said, again, I now have nothing else. So if you don't have anything else, go on ahead with our shout outs, please.
All right, so y'all check out these podcasts, listen to them. I try to listen to them every week. Some of them I get behind on. The current ones I keep up with pretty well. But the Scene Vault podcast with Rick Houston and Steve Wade, great historians of the sport. Door Bumper Clear with TJ Majors, Brent Griffin, and Freddie Kraft. Dale Jr. Download with Dale Jr. on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Excellent interviews. I mean, especially on Wednesdays. Listen to those. If you don't listen to the Tuesday shows, listen to the Wednesday shows. I mean, you get some awesome interviews. Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin. Denny called his shot last week that he was going to win at Dover. He went out and won at Dover. And it's not the first time Denny has called his shot. There's been a few times in his career that he's said the week before, is like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to win that race. And he goes out and wins. Now he just has a podcast that he can do it on. They asked him today, they said there's 25 races in the season. How many can the 11 team win? And he goes, 22. So he was leaving out the road courses. The Teardown with Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. If you want to talk about everything Taylor Swift, go and listen to them. Happy Hour with Kevin Harvick on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Also great interviews on Thursdays. Stacking Pennies with Corey LaJoie on Wednesdays. Follow Bob Pockrass on Twitter. Get your strats from Trey Ryan. Follow Matt Weaver on Twitter if you love motorsports. He covers them all. Jayski on Twitter, jayski.com for your stats. Couch Racer on Twitter. They are pretty doggone funny sometimes. And sometimes they think they're funny and they're not funny. It's usually Freddie's brother that's not funny. When Brent, you can pretty much tell when Brent Griffin or Freddie is the one on that account because they're funny. It's when Freddie's brother John gets on that account that it's really not funny. He tries to be, but he doesn't do a very good job at it. I'm kidding. Some of his stuff is funny. And then, of course, CircleBDiecast.com. Follow all their social medias. Go to their website. Order diecasts from them. They'll take care of you. They'll get them to you quickly when they come in. If they got them in stock, they'll get them to you quickly. Check out their previously owned diecast section for any great diecasts you may have missed that you haven't got in your collection yet that they give you a second chance on. They've got some prototypes on there. They've got some DIN number ones. They've got some door numbers. They've got some autograph cars on there. That's maybe the only way you're going to be able to get your hands on those. So check them out.
Definitely check them all out. All the podcasts are good. Good to listen to if you have the chance to, of course. And then everyone on Twitter, and then Circle B. So thank you to them, especially everyone on Twitter. We get a lot of our information from them so that we can talk about it, put in our own lovely 2 cents, and go on with it. So for our sponsors, partnered sponsors, you got Swift Grips, analog grips for your controllers, PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo Switch. So check them out. You can code Q's. Is that even a word? My English is at it again, folks.
Well, you have a pull queue.
Fair enough.
You got a queue where you wait in line.
Okay, you can stop now. So you can use code SterlingRider for 10% off at checkout. You also have our lovely energy brand, Dubby. I know this isn't the energy. This is one of their shakers, but still, it's within reach. Dubby Generalist Energy Blend energy drinks without the crash. Good source in vitamins. They also have hydration. Excuse me. Good grief. Hydration mixes that I use when I go to the gym, keep you hydrated and is healthy as well. So check out Dubby. You can use code SterlingRider for 10% off at checkout with them as well. Again, I will repeat. I know April's almost done. It probably will be done by the time this is uploaded. But April's a third birthday month. So a few more days for some special discounts if you can catch them. So follow them on Twitter as well, and check out their app. And then of course you got Rankest rope ranch wear, Western wear and rodeo mixed together. Super cool. Hats, hoodies, button-up shirts, t-shirts. I'm wearing one of their hoodies right now, the boot stitch hoodie. Super comfortable hoodie. So check them out. You can use code SilverDuke15 for 15% off at checkout. I did update their link in the description as... Sorry, guys. Apparently I ran out of disk space. Oops.
This hasn't been your night, man.
No, this weekend's off to a rocky start, that is for sure. So anyways, Rankest rope ranch wear, as I was saying, their link is updated. I updated in the description, so make sure you go to the right website and then use code SilverDuke15 for 15% off. So thank you to the sponsors as well. You help keep the channel going strong and me energized and clothed, I guess you could say. And then, of course, all the non-sponsored shout-outs, Circle B, all of our diecast, and everyone on Twitter with information, and the podcast with even more information and some humor. So, yeah, out of breath now for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, well, just watch out for those falling mannequins. Mannequins keep falling on my head.
Oh, gosh.
I knew the racers thought that someone was dead.
Okay, you know what? On that note, I think we're going to call it. So we will see you guys next week at Dover.
Kansas.
Excuse me. I'm telling you, it's not my week. Kansas, excuse me. I've done that before, too, talking about the race we just talked about, saying it was next week. But anyways, yeah, we'll see you next week after Kansas. all of the podcasts, all the Twitter guys on Twitter, and the sponsors. All the links are down in the description below. Make sure you check them out. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when a new podcast episode is up. And also when I am streaming, I do streaming once a week, at least I try to, some gaming. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And leave a comment. Appreciate the feedback. Help us ways to improve. So all the links in the description. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. So anything else?
Nope. We'll see you after Kansas. Don't get blown away and don't get hit with a mannequin.
Yep. Yeah, it's nothing I can say to that. So we'll see you guys next week at Kansas. So with further ado, peace out. Right on. God bless.